I'm pretty sure that you have heard the phrase, debt is the root of all evil. Never get into debt. Debt is slavery. Now this might be true to a certain extent, because if you're drowning in debt, your life is practically over. While you're working hard to pay back your debt are not waiting for you. They are growing each and every day. Since no one lends out money for free, and interest is always charged. Despite all of this, the United States has embraced debt. The total US consumer debt is a whopping $15 trillion, which brings the average household debt to around $5,300. The US GDP is a little over $21 trillion, which means the entire economy consists of debt. But not all is bad, as debt is not always considered to be the bad thing. Now this would be known as an unpopular opinion, because most of the debt we have would be considered as bad debt. Stuff like your credit card debt, car loan, student loan, which really makes you wonder, how many decades will it take to pay off these debts? How on earth can debt be something that is good? In order to understand this, let us take a look at how people with deep pockets will use debt to make even more money. This might be confusing, as why would the rich use debt in the first place? They already have a lot of money in their disposal, right? Isn't debt supposed to be used by poor people who have insufficient money? But that is not how capitalism works. So in this video, we'll take a deep dive into how rich people utilize debt to magnify their money. Number 1. Most of the trade is based on debt. It might sound controversial, as borrowing money to start a business is usually a horrible idea, and personally, I would never dare to do it. But as a matter of fact, there are businesses, especially traditional businesses, where using debt is your best option. Let's say you want to sell notebooks. It is a common product and there is pretty much always demand for it. Ideally, you would fly to China, find a factory that produces the notebooks you want with good quality and for the right price. You would purchase a container of notebooks, ship it back to your home country, and sell it to local customers. But today, that is mostly done online via websites like Alibaba and Amazon. Unless it is a more complicated product where you need to source for the factory. Here is the catch. You won't have to pay for the goods up front to have the goods in your possession. Let me elaborate further. In the past 50 years, China has become the factory of the world, producing literally everything. Hundreds and thousands of factories were set up to produce anything the world needs. In order to make it easy to sell, most factories would gladly loan you their products. In return, you would be paying them back in the future. Of course, not anyone will be able to borrow from them. You will need to form some sort of trust relationship with them beforehand. But that is how businesses have been running for the past 50 years. Once the product has been sold in the US or any other country, you would pay the factory and borrow more product from them. You're basically saying to the factory, you know how to produce it, while I know how to sell it. So let's make a deal. If I sell for anything above this price, that will be my profit margin. The benefit to this is that you're not tying your own money in this transaction, which is why selling is one of the top skills you can master. Number 2. Forex. Forex is a market when different currencies trade. It makes international trade possible. You cannot use US dollars in China. You will need to buy Chinese yuan to pay your employee for employees in China. There is a market for anyone or any entity to come in to purchase foreign currencies. And based on different factors, these currencies fluctuate. For example, the Fed raises interest rates, which will limit the supply of US dollars in the market. which makes it stronger against other currencies. So if you can predict which currencies will rise or fall, you can make a lot of money in the forex market. But what makes this market different from the rest is for every dollar you use to trade in forex, you can borrow an additional $100. That means if you trade using $1,000, you would be able to hold a position worth $100,000. And if you make a small profit of 1%, it would be huge in terms of the impact due to the leverage. Number 3. Refinancing. Real estate debt is the best kind of debt as it is filled with loopholes. If you don't have a mortgage, then you're paying extra taxes. Rich people always have multiple mortgages to be able to get all of those deductions. Remember this, every dollar that is supposed to be paid for taxes, but instead saved, is a dollar earned. That is how rich people get richer. But let me walk you through a more actionable way. Let's say you have $200,000. That is a lot of money, but it can be little as well, depending on who you ask, as that might not even be enough for a house. Of course, you can potentially get a mortgage of $800,000 as you use the money you save as down payment. But here's the secret. Let's say you found a property for $500,000. It is in bad condition and in need of a lot of renovation. You head to a bank and get a mortgage by making a 20% down payment. Let's say you're going to spend around 10% of the total cost to renovate the house. You will need $50,000. You head back to the bank, but this time you go to refinance the mortgage. Now remember, in your first mortgage, the value of your property was only $500,000 as it was in such bad conditions. But now, after your renovation, more people are willing to rent the place, and hence, the market value of the property has risen, assuming to $700,000. The first time you're going to get a 80% mortgage, and 80% of the $700,000 would be $560,000. Now, $400,000 out of that money is going to go to the first bank that gave you that first mortgage. And don't forget the $50,000 that you used for renovation. So now, you would be left with $110,000, which is your extra profit. You made $110,000 of profit using debt, and you're left to use that property that you can rent out to build equity and generate passive income. On top of that, you're going to avoid paying high taxes because you have a mortgage. Can you really say after this that debt is bad? I'll leave this to you in the comments below. Number 4. Credit score. As you see, debt is a powerful tool. Every successful company or entrepreneur uses debt in various ways, especially if you have a proven business model. Borrowing money to finance business operations is practiced by pretty much every business. So stop thinking that all debt is bad. Of course, debt with high interest rates like credit cards are horrible. But in order to minimize the interest rate, you need to reduce the risk of owing you money. Now how would you do that? You will need to build a track record of being a reliable borrower. There are billions or trillions of dollars in the bank waiting for someone to borrow them. And even if there isn't any money in the bank's vault, banks can create money out of thin air. Number 5. Hedge funds. Hedge funds are made by the rich, for the rich, to make rich people richer. They usually use unpopular strategies. Mortal people like me, we make our best effort to identify which companies are going to grow and thrive. And then we invest the money we work so hard to earn in hopes for these companies to grow. But hedge funds usually use an opposite strategy. They try to make money when companies fall or go bankrupt, such as GameStop. But in that case, the internet challenges them and makes them lose $13 billion. But how do hedge funds make money with that? Let's say you expect a certain stock to decline, like Facebook, because Apple, who produces the most popular smartphone, they will no longer allow apps that track you, such as Facebook or Instagram, track your online activity, and make privacy your number one priority. This will greatly damage Facebook's business model. So you pick up your phone and call your broker to borrow from him a single share of Facebook stock that costs, let's say, $100, and instantly sell it in the open market for $100. Now you have $100 in your pocket. But remember, you still owe your broker one share of Facebook stock. Let's say you are correct and the next week, Facebook stock dropped to $70 a share. So you use the money to buy back a Facebook stock and return it back to your broker. Congratulations! You have profited the difference, which is $30. It sounds simple in theory, but in practice it is extremely risky. What if the price doubles overnight and you still owe your broker a share, plus any interest that the broker charges you for borrowing a stock? You would have to fork out $200 to buy a share and return it back to your broker, plus the interest charge. When you buy a stock and try to sell it at a higher price, your maximum loss is only the amount you put in. But that is not the case for shorting. If the price keeps on rising, your losses will also keep on increasing. In theory, your losses would be unlimited. But if you have 100 analysts working for you, you can make a fortune using this strategy. So that concludes the 5 points of how the rich utilize debt to make more money. If you like the content of this video, please like and comment below. You're welcome to subscribe to the channel for more related videos on investing and growing your wealth. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.